We begin with the invocation, and we have our special guest, Leon Miller, in the back, and he's just going to ask the invocation from there, and we appreciate that very much. If you could stand.
Our Father, our God, we want to say thanks that you brought us through a new year, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, in the past, the things that had happened, we know you was there with us all the way, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless this new year coming in. Bless our leaders, oh Heavenly Father, that they will guide us in the right directions, oh Heavenly Father. And oh Heavenly Father, we ask you to look up under this community. Touch them for the many things that they have done, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, again, we say thanks for all the blessings that you have thrown upon us. In thy name, for Christ's sake, ever. Amen.
Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. First of all, for the mayor's report, which is item number 3 on the agenda, I'd like to wish all of you a happy new year and thank you for meeting with us here at the Lynn Haven Elementary School. We will continue meeting here for a while until we have another facility to meet. And I'd like to again thank John Cannon, the principal of the school, for making us welcome, and also to share with you a greeting from the students here, how excited they are that city government is taking place in their school, and they hope to be visiting many of our meetings. For the second part of the mayor's report, I wanted to report to you 2 wonderful donations that we've had for our Hurricane Relief Fund. If you're not familiar with that, every dollar of that money goes directly to the residents of Lynn Haven who have been affected by Hurricane Michael. We've been awarding grant checks to the residents in the amount of $1,000 per family. The applications are very simple. It's just 1 page, and our city screening committee looks for the most needy families first. Our intent is to award a grant to every single family before we're finished. I'd like to thank from the bottom of my heart Marshall Brothers Construction for their very generous donation to the Hurricane Relief Fund of $25,000. And so if you know Matt Marshall or Scott Marshall, please let them know how much we appreciate them thinking of us. Also, Mr. Jimmy Williams, the owner, if you are familiar, in Panama City Beach with Reed's Court. It's a waterfront mobile home park that's been there for many years. He came by yesterday and brought a check to me for the Hurricane Relief Fund in the amount of $5,000. So we'll be able to award some more families, and we're very excited about that. So thank you for that generosity. I would also like to mention that James Finch, owner of Phoenix Construction Company, called me and told me that he would be donating to us $50,000 to buy new playground equipment for Sheffield Park, to add to and also to replenish the equipment that was damaged during the storm. So we'd like to thank James Finch for his generosity to the children with that donation. In the last couple of weeks, I've met with many people. Many of you, if you follow on Facebook or you've seen the forum that I participated in with the county and some of the other meetings, I have continued to push and will continue to push for the data when it's released for the storm to be categorized, if possible, if it meets the categorization for a Category 5 storm. But also, if you're not familiar with the Stafford Act, this particular document came about several decades ago, and many hurricanes have been paid and reimbursed in the amount of 90 to 100% due to this act, and it takes a congressional bill or a presidential proclamation. So I continue to lobby for that for our city and for the cities surrounding us, because it will make a great difference in how we'll be able to recover after the storm. And so if you want more details on that, I'd be happy to meet with any of you to talk about the Stafford Act and what it means and how we can all continue to contact our representatives and to lobby. I do believe, as I said at the forum, that the storm will be categorized a 5 once all the data is in. Unfortunately, right now, because of the government shutdown, NOAA and some of the other organizations also are furloughed, and so we may even have a longer wait to get that information. But it is important information, and that is not an opinion of mine. It is backed up with research and FEMA's own documentation. I met with Will Kendrick, who is the district director for Congressman Dunn. I've spoken with Congressman Dunn twice. I've spoken with Jay Trumbull, George Gaynor, and other officials about this and other ways that they can help and assist us. I've met with federal and state FEMA representatives, with our city staff and consultants several times in ongoing reimbursement project preparation. It's a long process, and I want to commend our staff and our legal and accounting consultants for the great work that they're doing in making sure that we document correctly, we document with great accuracy, and that we keep our city moving on and moving forward in the very best way possible in these very difficult times. I'm very excited to see that we have some new business opening in Lynn Haven. If you haven't seen it, on Florida Avenue, Lighting by Lavon. She's a long term. She's been in Bay County for many, many years, a very successful businesswoman, and she'll be opening her business on Florida Avenue where Bill Rhodes Motorsports was located. So we're glad to see that building will be filled. And I'm taking part with the Bay County Emergency Task Force, and we'll be meeting with them on January 10th at 9 a.m. I've met with our city manager, Jay Moody, our financial consultant, as well as Adam Albritton, our legal consultant, on several occasions to talk about our city business and to make sure that I'm staying updated on all of our financial well-being, invoices, etc. I've met with Community Services Department to discuss our events for 2019. I want to commend them for all that they've done to keep our events moving through the winter season, through Halloween and Christmas and Thanksgiving. The city has come together in a great way after the storm because of the work of many of our city employees, and I can't commend you enough for all of the hard work that you've done to keep everybody, their spirits lifted, and to see that we will go on, that Hurricane Michael will not be a deterrent to our lifestyle here. And that's all that I have, and so I'll move down to Commissioner Tender.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, in the last few weeks, I've just been fielding a lot of calls. They're all pretty much the same. We're kind of all in the same boat, and yet everybody has their own story to tell, and that is their most important story. I received a call today from a lady on Colorado Avenue in the 900 block who has brought a trailer to her home because her home was damaged in the hurricane, and yet she gets out of her trailer and stands in 5 inches of water in her grass. She said this has been an ongoing problem, and she explained to me that when she called Public Works, that everything has been brought to a halt. So I want to look into that further. I assume the city manager can answer to that or explain whatever's going on there. And I think that's all I have right now. I have comments, but I'm going to wait till I get to the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I too have been fielding a lot of questions about zoning, flood zone issues, and I want to make sure I thank the staff because every time I get a question, I get the answer that I need, pretty quick. And I just want to tell all y'all thank you for that. And that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, I've been talking with some residents in the Moat Highlands subdivision regarding some drainage issues. I had the city manager meet me on site along with Public Works, so we kind of worked out some temporary things, but in the long run, there's going to have to be some more permanent fixes in order for the drainage to take place. Yesterday, I also met with the city manager, Mr. Jay Moody, and the city auditor, just sit down and talk about the city finances. And we've got a long road ahead of us. So just want you to be aware of it. I don't think we'll be able to do, this is my opinion, business as we've done in the past. We're going to have to tighten our belts. So that's all I have to report.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the same questions. I'll just share some of mine. Are as the cleanup continues, the one that I get is, when are we going to stop the pickup? So that's one that keeps coming up. And also the creeks, and not so much the ditches. The ditches are there as well, but and of course I've talked to the city manager about these items, and we've talked about them. But some of the creeks, because who's going to clean out the debris, the trees that are in the creeks, because we're concerned about some flooding issues there. And then lastly would be the illegal dumping So, and I haven't seen any more illegal dumping, but I know we've had some already. So those are the questions that I'm fielding, and I've talked about city manager with it. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. And I had one other item I'd left out of the mayor's report. This Saturday, January the 12th, is our first One Street at a Time cleanup day. It's a community volunteer get-together day. We're all meeting at Porter Park, and we will be cleaning Pennsylvania Avenue as the first street, going from the Bay all the way to 17th Street. It's going to be a really exciting time. We have a lot of youth that are helping us, that they get community service hours for doing that. And we'll be raking and pulling stuff to the right-of-way, and the city trucks will be there to pick up as we bag the trash, and I think it's going to make a big difference. We'll be doing one street at a time, as the name says, and going back and forth across 77. So the next street would be New York, and then the following time we'd go back across to the east side and do Michigan and so forth, back and forth, until we get the old part of Lynn Haven and then move on to other areas. And I've noticed that it's picking up across the county since we announced ours, that other areas are doing the same thing. So it's very exciting to see that community effort is going to help with the cleanup. So,
Mayor, did you?
yes.
I'm sorry. Did you mention the time? Could you? Remind
yes,
us
it's
the
from
time?
8 a.m. until 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Thank you.
Sure. Item number 5 is the city manager's report.
Thank you. As each of you, I've been busy as well, trying to run the city and work with staff to try to answer a lot of questions. We have a lot of contractors in the area that not familiar with our ordinances and things of that nature. So it's been a whirlwind, but we're getting there and trying to work best to work with people. Like to present to y'all possibly next meeting. I will have a financial plan laid out, how the city of Lynn Haven should tackle this debris issue and other issues as it relates to when do we look at stopping, when do we start doing, like the mayor said, a final cleanup, a final sweep of some areas. And that's one thing I would like to encourage the citizens and business of Lynn Haven. We're not going to be picking up debris forever. So I'd like to encourage you, the meter's running. I'd like to encourage you to, if you cleaned your front yard, get the backyard cleaned as quickly as you can, because that day will be coming. And once it comes, you're going to be responsible. So right now the city's picking it up, and unfortunately, it's a lot of money being spent, and we got to find a way to fund that. But other than that, I'd like to thank all my employees for the job they're doing and trying to keep up with the added pressures. We're very short in some areas. We do not have facilities to properly serve the citizens like I'd like, but we're working on plans to bring the city back to fruition and make it a stronger community. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Item number 6 is the attorney's report. All right.
Just to make sure that the board is aware, the city manager and I have been working on an issue which involves Marina Island LLC. I'm sure the board remembers in 2017 there was an agreement entered into with Marina Island and the city which called for the rails to be recycled and the net profit split. The city manager and I have been working together to come up with a number of different viable alternatives to try and enforce that agreement, because to this point Marina Island has been non-compliant. But I wanted to make sure that the board was aware we are working on that issue, and we being the city manager and I, and we're looking for viable alternatives that will get the city what they contractually are entitled to.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, could I ask a follow-up, please?
You certainly may.
And maybe the city manager as well. At last, I know this is going back a little bit, but have we ever gotten a development order? Because I know we passed that date at some point, so we do not. There you go.
No, sir, we have not.
And there's your leverage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on then to item number 7, this is public commentary. This is your opportunity to address the commission with any item that you would have to talk about that's on the agenda, or if you have something that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to talk about that as well. Complaints, concerns, or praise, we'll take any of those. Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. One of my questions has partially been answered by the city manager. I was going to ask for a listing of the process where we will be rebuilding our city infrastructure, for instance, senior center, library, police station. But you mentioned that at the next commission meeting, you may have a list of financial outline of some sort.
Yes, ma'am. Included in that will be some possibility of what we're going to do with some of the parks, some things that are merely ideas, because I think the mayor and I have been working very hard on a lot of these things together, because trying to balance what the people want and what the city can afford, and how we can pay for it. But we've come up with some good ideas. Yeah. So we'll have a lot of public hearings, but we got to have a starting point. So right now I'm working with a consultant on redesigning some of the buildings. And I'll go ahead and say this, a lot of the newer buildings and the existing buildings we have will have a little flair of the 1928 City Hall. It'll be built off the Spanish decor with a modern twist. So that's what the city of Lynn Haven's known for. And everybody knows the building right there on the corner of Ninth Street is the city. So we're looking at that. As far as the funding, I'm going to try to outline that. I'll be going through the budget in the upcoming weeks, trying to see where we can take back. And actually, be honest with you, I've already tightened the belt on all departments right now. They do not really have a budget. Right now, that's been kind of froze and only getting what we need. The city is not overspending. As Commissioner Barnes mentioned, the belt has been tightened internally, and it will continue working to try to find ways of maximizing our dollar for the citizens.
In regard to funding, do we have an end of the year budget for fiscal year 2017 to 2018?
Due to the storm, it's been passed down. I did get a engagement letter today from CRI. I have not even looked at it. I just got it about an hour ago. So that'll be something else that the board will have to look into. Because we got to get it done. Yes, ma'am. By March. Yes, that's right. It's in the works. I just got the engagement letter an hour ago. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment or questions for the commission today? Oh, Mr. Robitaille, I'm sorry.
My name is Dale Robitaille. Good evening, afternoon, whatever. And I live at 1805 New Hampshire Avenue. I came here today for two purposes. One, to thank our mayor and to ask her, please slow down. We don't need you sick. We can only pray for you so much. Please slow down.
Thank you, Mr. Robitaille.
And another issue started out probably the same time Mr. Barnes and I joined this group. It's the funding of one of the biggest expenses we have in our budget, the Lynn Haven Police Department. Now those of you who are looking right away, no, I'm not a cop killer. I'm here in the best interest of Lynn Haven. But again, I'm asking for fiscal responsibility from you. I'm asking for a motion that our city manager make a comprehensive study of the cost of running the police department, which also includes, it's not kick them while they're down, it also includes how much it will cost us to rebuild their facility. And then the comprehensive comparison issue is how much policing of Lynn Haven will cost us if we contract out, like Callaway did and totally enjoy, to the Bay County Sheriff's Department. Now there's a lot of things I can go right to, and that's asking some questions. And if I may, Madam Chair.
You still have time.
Okay, I'd like to ask individual commissioners this question.
You can only address the board as a
That's
whole.
what I thought.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me, Madam Mayor, how much in our budget do we provide for the Lynn Haven Police Department?
A large percentage goes to salaries, Mr. Robitaille.
How much total, please?
I'm not looking at the budget right now. I think it's 27% is what we're looking at.
But we don't know dollars.
Sir, I don't have the budget in
Okay.
front of me, but I will the next time you come to the podium, I promise.
Okay, well, that's my point, though. It's my point.
It is a large amount, I will give you that, and, but
Okay,
I,
and the
go ahead.
next question I have is how much, I know that 47% of my tax bill goes to the Let's Have a School on Every Corner program. And-
Which we don't control.
And I really wonder how much of my tax bill goes to pay for sheriff's department and how much of my tax bill goes to pay for the police department. That's the comprehensive part, a comparison there. And when I ask these, I have to be objective. Oh, we all have, wave your flag, I like the police department. We all have that, but that's not your job. Your job is to be fiscally responsible. You are to understand how much it costs to run that police department and how much it would cost to contract it out. That's what it's all about.
Mr. Robitaille, I think I'm probably within the realm of cost if I say our city budget is $24 million, and I believe the cost of our police department is a little shy of $2 million, which is getting close to 10% of the city budget. I believe that I'm correct in that. I'd have to,
Okay.
don't quote me until I look
I
at it.
appreciate that. Because you
And,
do that,
and
you do
3
that.
minutes is getting close, so if you could bring it to a close. I'm getting a general gist of what you're saying, and I think everyone else is too.
And I want to go one step farther. Madam
Okay, I'll
Mayor.
indulge.
As long as you're asking me to ask you. If you'll recall, Madam Mayor, comparison of the police, our police department, and that of the sheriff's police department was an election platform issue for you. It was something you promised, and I'm calling upon you to do that now. So what I'm doing now, you all know where I'm going and all where I'm coming from.
And if I may clarify, I did not promise that I would combine with the sheriff's department. I said I would reduce the cost, and a lot of that had to do with the salaries that we were paying. Some of the top salaries were over the top.
Yes, that's. a
So
matter
I just want to
of-
clarify what I said.
Okay, it's a matter of interpretation, I'm sure. But what I'm calling for this afternoon is a motion, an objective motion, asking that you accept your responsibility, a motion calling for Mr. White, our city manager, to do a comprehensive, objective study and comparing the two.
Thank you, Mr. Robitaille. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the commission today? Yes, sir, go ahead.
My name is John McCrory. I'm at 416 Tennessee Avenue. And at first, I want to thank the mayor, the board, and all of our city employees for such an awesome job that they have done for our city and are doing for our city. So
Thank you.
thank all of you. My question is, how much is the government going to either reimburse or pay for FEMA, SBA, any of the agencies to make us whole again, if possible?
The public assistance amount, if it stands as it is now, is 75%, 25% is the ratio. There are certain days that are allocated by FEMA. There were 5 days that were allocated that would right now stand at October 10th through October 14th that the government would pay at a 100% rate for our first emergency response, our emergency responders costs, that kind of thing. What I alluded to earlier in the mayor's report of what I'm working on, and I think many others are working on as well in other cities in the county, is directly addressing the president because he has the power to address FEMA and bring 100% reimbursement. There's much discussion about how the category of the storm would affect this payment. It could, according to the newest document of which FEMA has out for public assistance in April of 2018, that handbook provides 90% in unusual, extraordinary circumstances, which I think if anyone looks around, we're in unusual, extraordinary circumstances. There's a list of literally dozens of hurricanes since the 1970s and into the 80s, 90s, all the way through Hurricane Andrew, which it did take 10 years for Andrew to be reclassified as a Category 5. The Stafford Act, the Stafford Report, is one that can bring about congressional language by an act of Congress, a bill. If you read today's paper, I know Congressman Dunn did allude to the fact that he is working on several bills. They are not, the ones that he's working on right now are about forestry and some other areas. They don't directly affect public assistance. That's what I've been speaking with him about, as well as his staff. So at this point in time, we're looking at 75-25 for the bulk of it. And Lynn Haven's going to be looking at probably total bills of somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 million for the trash, the debris pickup, rather, both vegetative and C&D. We have a daunting task ahead of us. We've done a great job with working on the reimbursement procedures, and we continue to do that. We continue to meet weekly with state and federal representatives. And again, it's going to be a long road, and we are up to the task, and we are continually looking for counsel and looking for more information to help us do it better. I think that the city is leading the county right now in many ways in how this is being handled, and so once again, I'd like to commend the staff and all those who have worked so hard to make sure that we're in the place that we are right now.
Thank you.
Does that help? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address? Yes.
Good afternoon, Mayor. My name is Ben Jenke, CRA Director, City of Lynn Haven. I'm also a member of the Lynn Haven Rotary Club. And so I'm wearing my Rotary Club hat today, and I brought some support today. We have some visitors actually from our sister club in Newport Richey, Florida, and they heard about what happened here in Lynn Haven, and they would like to make a presentation here today to the Commission.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Well, it's a privilege to be here. I've spent the afternoon touring your city, seeing what you've been challenged with, and this all started with a hole in the roof of one of our members who grew up here, his brother's house, and that's how it all happened. I got a hold of the Lynn Haven Rotary Club, and Beverly and Ben have been fantastic to help us coordinate on helping the schools, getting supplies here. But then we heard about your fund through Ben, and we wanted to really help you out with that and get started with a little bit. So the Rotary Club of Newport Richey, through 2 donors that stepped up and give us some funds, we'd like to present you with a $5,000 check to help with that.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Would all the commission like to stand so we could have a photo op? This is amazing. Thank you so much.
And tomorrow we're going around to 5 of your schools and donate more money to each one of the schools. $60,000 we're going to donate this time. There'll be more to come. More to come. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. Calvin, start with a hole in Calvin's roof.
It started with a hole in my roof, and this is my brother Gary here. He's from Newport Richey, so it's kind of got it all started. That's good.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
And if I could just say to you that $1,000, and that's $5,000, and to put that in perspective with the Hurricane Relief Fund, that's 5 more families in this town that you've put on the road to recovery, giving them $1,000 each to take care of some of their immediate needs. Thank you. God bless Rotary. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak or bring up another check? Thank you so much.
Bear, is it possible for me to bring something up from the past here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I see if there was any more public commentary first, and then I'll recognize. Was that all the public commentary? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And then Commissioner Tender has asked to be recognized.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm following protocol or not, But everything that Mr. Robitaille said really hit home with me. And if it's possible, I would like to make a motion that we do a comprehensive plan with our.
What I
Is
would
it possible or no?
What I would like to suggest is that if you are interested in doing that, is that you would have the city manager to place that on the agenda for next time, and then you could.
No problem.
Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
That would be better since it's a pretty large item to bring up. Okay?
Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else on the board who has anything else? Okay. Then moving on to the consent agenda, item number 8. These are the minutes from the December 11th, 2018 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Any from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. The motion stands approved. There is no old business on today's agenda. Moving to item number 9. This is approval of the 2019 marketing and communications events. Do we have any staff report on this, or are we just asking for a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to present to the board. One of the things we looked at, looked with staff, the different programs that we have, what facilities we'll have available. This is the best that we could come through. One of the things I'd like to stress to you with this is a lot of these, my staff has been told we're going to have to look for a lot of donors and a lot of sponsorships to help pull these off because we'll need all the dollars we can for the recovery. But we still have to have a quality of life in Lynn Haven, and I think that's what everybody is accustomed to. Our concerts in the park, and you know, the trunk or treat. We had 7,000 kids. I mean, that was unbelievable. I think we hit a home run with a few of these, and we got to make sure we do things for the kids and the people as well. So you have a list in front of you. You can see we've cut out several of these events. One of them, for instance, the Hermit Crab Festival, which is a pretty lengthy process. However, we'll be hopefully working on Porter Park at that time. So, you know, we will not be able to have a festival down there. So if you have any questions about any particulars, please let me know.
And if I could just add to what our city manager was saying, I did sit in on this particular staff meeting about the events. These events are not canceled. The ones that say no, they're not canceled forever. This is just a proposal for this year as we're getting back on our feet. So just because if you're like me, these are wonderful things that bring us together. And these are the items that staff agreed because of just their need to be in other areas and for the need for money to be in other areas. And I thought they made good, prudent decisions. So that's my opinion on that. And did anyone else on the board have a comment you'd like to make?
I do, Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead, Commissioner Friend.
Yeah, and I certainly respect all the work that went into this, but the only one I was just kind of looking at was Easter. I know we had Easter at Sheffield Park until we went to the sports complex, and I understand the sports complex situation. I knew it grew at the sports complex as well, but I just didn't know if we couldn't do Easter at Sheffield Park again. Was that discussed at the meeting, and what's our thoughts on that?
It was discussed. As you know, it does take several employees is one of the reasons, and the other reason is the dead expense of the eggs and the candy and things of that nature, and not knowing where we might be with Sheffield as far as the restoration. We was trying our best to limit because some of the plan as well, the park would be smaller due to the fact when we put some temporary facilities up, we're going to have to use that end that we're using now to put some portables. So I just don't know if I can make it that large like it was. We was using a couple baseball fields.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I want to make sure I understand that this is just for this year, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. And there is no problem with Florida Avenue businesses having the block party?
Yes, ma'am. That's
Awesome.
yeah.
I like that idea. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board? Any comment from the public? Okay, is there, so I'm sorry, I lost my place there. So there's been a motion and a second for approval of the 2019 marketing and events. Did I make a motion? I don't think we did we? Okay, would someone make a motion, please, for approval of the 2019 marketing and communications events?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. And again, thank you to staff for your hard work on working on that list. Item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance number 1070, amending section 9.01.02 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code, the ULDC, to remove the words "act of God." Mr. White, do you have that ordinance? Okay.
Ordinance number 1070, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending section 9.01.00 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to non-conforming situations, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date.
Thank you. And this is a first reading requiring no action today, but Mr. White, do you have any comments to make on this, or the city attorney, just to allow the public to know what we're doing?
Yes, ma'am. As we spoke quite a bit this morning about the financial strength of the city, there's a lot of small businesses in the city that would like to build back in the area. We have changed ordinance through the years, and some of them will not comply and conform to the area they're in now. They've been grandfathered in through the years. One of the things this looks at is it looks like if someone had like a 1,500 square foot facility, what this will allow them to do is put back that 1,500 square foot facility. Now, if they go any larger, they have to worry about the stormwater and all that. But right now, they're maintaining their own flood water and their own imprint on the land. But this will relieve that a little bit and allow these businesses that's been here since the 70s. I know 2 or 3. I've been working about 5 different businesses that this would truly help and get them back up and running.
Thank you. Okay, and then moving on to item number 11, that will be the first reading of ordinance number 1. Well, let me back up just a moment. Were there any questions from the public on that item? I apologize. Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. What the city manager said, I didn't see any reference to act of God.
The words are in the ordinance.
I mean, what that had to do with rebuilding at 1,500 thousand square feet. What does the act of God got to do with it?
I was given the example. The act of God is Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael has destroyed all these businesses. So I was just giving an example. If someone had a 1,500 square foot facility, we don't want them to leave the city, and they may not have enough land to do what to put in stormwater where they need to on that facility with some of the ordinances that's in effect. So we allow them to build that building straight back like it was.
I got that.
With if it's in the CRA, they abide by CRA rules. They abide by the state rules, new building codes, things of that nature.
So what does the act of God have to do with that? Act of God has nothing
Mayor,
to do
Mayor,
with...
if I may?
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
The way the ordinance reads right now is if your building is destroyed, you can't rebuild it unless you meet all the requirements in that area. Okay? The ordinance reads, it doesn't matter whether it's an act of God, it doesn't matter whether it's public enemy, and it doesn't matter if it's, I can't remember what the third issue is. Fire explosion. So no matter what, you can't rebuild to your existing building unless you meet all the requirements.
And one of the requirements is act of God.
One of the requirements, well, no, even with an act of God, you can't right now. So by us taking this wording out of that ordinance, now by an act of God, we would allow that person to build back to that footprint.
Okay.
So it's giving him an exception. The act of God's the exception. Okay?
So in other words, the emergency is going to have a couple components. One, the commission that has to do that, and the other one, the declaration of emergency, from the state.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Walker?
Kind of, but it leads to another question. Are we going to remove "In God We Trust" from the front of your pedestals?
I have no idea what that has to do with what we're discussing right now. No, I don't want it off of mine.
You're bringing in It seems to be a little bit.
Mr. Walker, act
confusing.
of God is a legal term, like for an act of
A
God.
legal term?
It is a legal
Ma'am,
term.
can I-
Go ahead,
can I-
please, please,
Mr.
Adam.
Walker, the current ordinance references a number of things. If your building is destroyed through fire, flood, an
Right.
act of God by more than 50%, the rebuild has to be up to snuff with the current ULDC for everybody. Well, there are certain buildings that were constructed in the 60s and 70s that we don't want Hurricane Michael to act as a punitive measure if they were destroyed by 50%. So by removing that term, we're not taking God out of anything. We're removing a term so that they can rebuild to the same or similar footprint. It is not it's not we're removing "In God We Trust" or anything like that. It's a whole nother item or topic. This is pertaining to something that is currently included in the ULDC that says if your building is destroyed in part by an act of God and the damage exceeds 50%, you have to rebuild back to the new and updated codes, which would act as a punitive measure for those older owners of older buildings who wish to have rebuilt to the same scope. If they want to enlarge it, that would be different. But if they want to put the same building back that they had or very similar, then by enacting this ordinance, it would be allowed.
Acceptable.
Any other discussion or questions from the public? Any further from the board? Moving on to item number 11, the first reading of ordinance number 1071, amending section 5.02.00 of the Unified Land Development Code, the ULDC, allowing the City of Lynn Haven residents to place a temporary housing unit upon their property for a limited amount of time. Mr. White?
Ordinance number 1071, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending section 5.02.00 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to temporary uses and structures, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board regarding this item? Any from the public? Okay, that is a first reading which requires no action today. Moving on to item number 12, approval of selected applicants for the Disaster Relief Grant Fund. Mr. White, would you like to comment?
Yes, ma'am. It's with my great pleasure. Y'all have before you a listing of 25 applicants that has been scrubbed through Vicki Gaynor and myself, and those are for Hurricane Disaster Relief Fund. So they each would be getting $1,000 apiece, and we'd like to present that to y'all to pass.
Is there a motion for approval?
We don't have that.
It's a list of addresses.
It's just a list of addresses.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just say something, this came to my attention, and I happen to agree with it wholeheartedly. I love that we're giving this money away. I wouldn't deny anybody, but I would like to have the board maybe consider a different method of deciding who gets to have the $1,000 and who doesn't. And the reason I bring this up is because it's all about perspective. And that's just very basic. It's about perspective. If I were the one sitting there trying to decide who got the $1,000 this time, I can tell you I would pick everybody over the age of 80, you know? And I know people who would say, oh, these people are more deserving because they have a lot of children. I just wanted to bring it up because I feel like it's something that should just simply be in a drawing, you know, pull a hat out of the bag and verify their credentials, verify that it's accurate and everything. And I'm not certainly saying that Vicki and the city manager are doing a bad job or anything like that. It's just, it's all about perspective. And I feel like that's an awful lot of responsibility for two people to take. Who's getting that kind of money?
And Commissioner Tender, I certainly respect what you're saying. I would bring back to your attention that in the early stages that we had discussed that in the beginning we would just do it by first come, first serve, whoever filled out the application first. There were talk of like you said, a drawing, and there was a great discussion about that. We felt if you're looking at an application and the application is very simple, that has the amount of money that a family makes, how many dependents they have, their address, what the house looks like, is it completely destroyed, are they displaced, and in other words, we want to eventually give this money to every single household in Lynn Haven, which I believe will occur. We're steadily moving along with the project. But for example, my home, I mean, of course I wouldn't put my name in the hat anyway, but if my name were in the hat, my home, my husband and I are living in the home. We have no children there. We didn't take significant damage to our house. We have what we need there. And then 2 doors down, I see there's a family, you know, there are children there. There are many children in the home. I see, you know, significant damage. I see them using an outdoor shower, that kind of thing. And so that's really what's happening with this screening process. Even though the city manager and our deputy city clerk are going through the applications, they're also having people do the legwork to actually drive and look at the different, when they look at an application and they think, this looks like they've got 6 children, this is their income, this looks like a really needy application, they actually drive to that location and look. And so I think there's a lot more that goes into it than what you see. I would respectfully say that there are probably many great ways of doing it. I personally support the way that it's happening right now. But if there are others on the commission who would want to discuss and come up with another means, I would certainly be open to that. At this point, we have been several weeks since the last donation, and one of the things that we wanted to do was avoid red tape and get the money into people's hands as quickly as possible. So I would hope that we could move forward with today, and then if there's some dissension, or dissension's the wrong word, some other ideas about how to do this, then maybe open that up for the next round. That's just my thoughts. I don't know what the other thoughts
I don't want to stop progress. I'm just bringing it up because it was brought to me.
I appreciate that.
I felt like it was kind of a valid point, and I'm still hoping for the 40 million. I've still got that.
It's steadily coming in.
And the other question I did have, though, for city manager, the people that are getting the money, is that going to the? It's not going to the landlord, is it? It's going to the individual who's renting?
It's going to the individual.
Not the landlord.
No, ma'am. Whoever fills out the application, I go through the stack, then Vicki goes through the stack, and then we put our heads together and try to look at all the data, and then we try to select the ones right now is in most need.
Right.
But with that, if they're in the most need, if your name is Joe Smith, your landlord is Richard Smith, we're going to give it to Joe Smith.
Okay, that was something that I talked about with this person, and I just right away said, oh no, it goes to the renter, and then I thought, oh geez, I wanted to make sure because that is much more fair. But thank you for listening.
Is there any other discussion on item number 12 from the board? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the public? Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I want to appreciate Mrs. Tinder bringing that forward. It's almost as if she read my mind. I'm not the person she spoke to, but those are many of the questions I had. Because one of the houses on the last round, one of the 25, is a $480,000 home in the country club. So I'm thinking of $1,000 to someone who owns a $480,000 home versus someone who owns maybe $100,000 or $150,000 home on the elderly, more elderly than I, but on that elderly list could use that more than someone. Or there are a number in here that are with a pool. So those types of homes to me, 300, 350. There are people on the lower income bracket to me that could use it much more than those larger homes. And I'm glad that Judy brought it forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Mr. Robitaille, you can certainly stand where you are, sir, if you'd like to speak from there, or we'll wait for you, whichever.
I can talk loud. I know your heart's in the right place. And with the exception of a couple, I'm sure you're all good Christians. But, and there's always a good but. Let's talk. First of all, let me ask. Is the applicant's name removed during your consideration of their eligibility?
It is not.
It is not. Do you have an oversight committee?
We do not.
Thank you.
What I would say to you, Mr. Robitaille, is that this is a trust fund that we established to give money to every single household in Lynn Haven, and that is still.
Coming from. I was just
still the goal. And I appreciate your questions. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to comment?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
I promise it's the last thing I have to say. This goes to something that Commissioner Friend said earlier, and he brought it to the foreground in my mind, and it's very comical, and I say it with all, what do I want to say? It's funny. With all the debris that we have in Lynn Haven, and we've all seen it, it's high, it's low, it's building material, it's trees and everything. And the other day, a matter of fact, it was New Year's Eve, I was going down 390 and looked to the right, and I saw a sign sticking up. It said, "Elect Judy Tender." And I stopped in my tracks, and I went, "What?" I said, "Turn around, we're going back." We went back. There was not only one "Elect Judy Tender" sign in this person's debris. There was somewhere between 50 and 75 of my election signs from 3 years ago. And I just found it very, very funny. When it comes to garbage, everybody's view is different, you know, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. If we could, back to item number 12, the approval of selected applicants for the Disaster Relief Grant Fund. We've had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board?
Mayor, I do have, and I apologize for talking with the attorney, but I just wanted to clarify maybe with him. We set the policy.
Could you share what you were clarifying?
Absolutely. We set the policy for this and the procedures to go through the applicants, and we've set who does the application process. I'm just curious, why did we set the policy that the commission had to approve the list? Because in my opinion, I think we should just let it move forward and we don't have to even see the list.
Well, I think what this is for is we have to, every time we make a grant of money through the board, we are the board of the trust fund,
Right.
We have to approve the grant. In other words, we have to approve the checks, is my understanding. You're not approving whether you approve of, because all you're looking at is an address. This is just a way of validating that there are 25 homes that are about to receive this money. It's just more or less a J. Moody accounting check-off box. The board approved that we give $25,000, $1,000 to each of these homes, is my understanding.
Okay.
And I'll defer to you, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think certainly this board, again, acting in its capacity under the 501c3, can set its own policy, but I think both of Commissioner Friend and the mayor are running parallel to each other. I think this board, the way it's set up now, can allocate a sum of money and then authorize that $1,000 disbursements of that sum. So if you have $25,000 disbursement of $1,000 to the individuals in Lynn Haven, it does not then require that this board act to individually give away that money. All you're doing is authorizing the total sum and the amounts to be distributed to each possible awardee.
That's my understanding as well. So we are in agreement, Commissioner Friend, with our question. Is there any further discussion? At this time, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, stands approved. And 25 more families will be receiving help because of this trust fund, and that just makes my heart happy. I hope it does yours. So at this time, did you have something you want to say, Commissioner Russell? Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, if you don't mind. Not that I want to do this, because I one of the programs that I think is going to get cut here is one of the ones that I really look forward to helping. But following what we did with the CRA, I feel like the city needs to suspend the residential incentive program throughout the city, as well as any other incentive program we have, until our budget is situated, until we make sure we have the money that we need to build. Now, by saying that, one of the programs is the extracurricular activities for the schools that we've got the $50,000 set aside for. And I don't really want to suspend that, but I feel like if we're going to suspend the residential program, we need to suspend that too. So that would be my motion, Mayor.
And so because this is not on this particular agenda, I think that, again, I think it would be something to place on the agenda for the next meeting, and that way the public would have a time to look at that and have their comment on that as well.
And I would be okay with that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Is there any further business, any other comments from the board? At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending, and we're happy to see you here today.